The fog rolled thick over Whitechapel, curling like smoke around gas lamps and swallowing the footsteps of early risers. Just months after the infamous Ripper murders had seemingly ended, East London remained gripped by fear. The killer had vanished, but the shadow he left lingered like a curse. Eleanor Hargreaves, a midwife in her early 40s, lived in a narrow tenement with her mute daughter, Ivy, who hadn't spoken since the death of Eleanor's husband the previous year. Eleanor was respected in the community, calm, maternal, always present at births and deaths. But she was haunted by more than grief. A new body had been found in Mitre Square. This time, it wasn't a prostitute, but a young boy, throat cut with eerie precision. The press whispered the Ripper had returned, but the method felt different. Less rage, more ritual. Inspector Jonathan Reeve, one of the last decent coppers in Whitechapel, had been there when they found the boy. Carved into his wrist was a small symbol, an inverted triangle with a line through it. It wasn't in any police database, but he'd seen it before. Years ago, in a case quietly closed by the Metropolitan Police, a murdered doctor and a woman who was never found. Reeve remembered that case well, because Eleanor Hargreaves had been the last to see the doctor alive. Reeve visits Eleanor. Her face remains calm, but Ivy clutches her skirt tightly as he asks questions. Eleanor says she remembers the old case, but not the symbol. She gently reminds him she was cleared, though back then, they didn't investigate women very thoroughly. As he leaves, Ivy hands him a drawing. It's of the symbol. And something else. A masked figure. A knife. Ivy had seen something. Reeve begins digging. The doctor murdered years ago, Dr. Alcott, had worked in a private asylum. Reeve uncovers patient records. Eleanor Hargreaves had been admitted there for temporary insanity after a miscarriage, just before the Ripper murders began. At the same time, an anonymous letter arrives at the police station. He only killed what she couldn't. Attached is a blooded kerchief. Reeve confronts Eleanor. "You knew the Ripper," he says quietly. "I knew a Ripper," she replies. Eleanor breaks. The story spills out. Her husband, Thomas Hargreaves, was not the man everyone thought. He was a surgeon who had lost his mind, obsessed with purifying the East End. He believed women were the root of society's decay. She discovered his journals. She tried to stop him. When she confronted him, he struck her, and the next day, the first Ripper murder was in the paper. She didn't go to the police. Who would believe her? So she began following him, sabotaging his plans, leaving false clues. The night of the last Ripper killing, she drugged him and left him unconscious in an alley. But someone else had seen. Ivy. The boy murdered wasn't random. He was the son of a local constable, one of the men who helped cover up Thomas Hargreaves' death. Because Eleanor hadn't drugged him, she had killed him, bludgeoned him, then slit his throat in the same manner he used on his victims. Someone had seen, and someone had taken up the mantle. A copycat? No. A judge. A reckoning. Reeve uncovers the identity of the new killer, Dr. Lydia Morner, a physician and quiet feminist who had treated Eleanor in the asylum. She believed Eleanor had done what the police never could, end the reign of terror. She believed Eleanor had become something more, a symbol of justice. Now she was finishing the work, punishing those who enabled the horror. Reeve finds Eleanor in her flat. Ivy is gone. A letter sits by the fire. There was no justice for what was done to those women. Not from your kind. I did what I had to, not for revenge, but for silence. But silence has a way of echoing. Ivy will speak now. And when she does, listen. EH. Eleanor had taken poison. By morning, she was dead. Ivy, now in care, begins to speak again. Slowly. She draws. She testifies. Dr. Morner is arrested. But in her cell, she leaves one final message. There will always be a Ripper. But if you look closely, there's always a widow, too. Reeve resigns. The truth never goes public. But in the alleys of Whitechapel, the legend spreads. A woman with blood on her apron, appearing in the fog when justice goes unanswered. And sometimes, a child's whisper in the dark. The widow walks again.